What's up, boys? Today I'm going to teach you how to be an epic wizard. I've gotten a lot of questions about my build, so today I'm going to show you what build I use, explain how it works, and give you some tips on how to use it effectively. Here you can see how I've allocated all of my trait points up until my current level, which is 36. A lot of people wonder where they should put their early trait points, and it's really not that complicated. The later tiers, later traits you can get, are better than the early ones generally, especially in this tree. So you just want to keep building towards the higher traits as you level up. One of your biggest early power spikes is at level 16, which you get because the damage you get from Charge the Stick is essentially doubled after this upgrade. This is a huge power spike. Your next big power spike you get is around level 24 because you get Conflagrated Mind, which gives your Conjure Fire a much bigger radius. You can see here, this is what my Conjure Fire looks like before I get the upgrade. It's very small. But once you upgrade it, it is big. With this build especially, you want to allocate as many points as you can into mana regen so that you can Conjure Fire as often as possible and proc your Charge the Stick as often as possible. With that said, after level 16, Magic becomes a really important stat because it allows you to do more damage with Charge the Stick, even though Conjure Fire has very low base magic scaling. Just the extra damage from Charge the Stick makes building magic pretty worth it after level 16, especially. Before level 16, you're probably better off investing in a larger mana pool so that you can use Conjure Fire more often with its increased base damage. Do not be afraid to invest in your HP pool. This build gives you very little survivability, so you will have to invest into your HP. Early on, HP is good. Later on, HP is good. Always make sure to upgrade your HP if you do not feel like you need more mana. This is a very important stat to upgrade. Just for clarity, at my level, I am essentially putting 1 point into mana regen and magic at every single level, putting as many points as I can into these stats, and then I am putting some points into mana and a lot of points into HP, with a few points into capacity so that I can play the game. It is important with this build to understand where your damage is actually coming from, right? So I'm gonna fight this Bone Eater. So your damage, right, you Conjure Fire, and then you auto, and then you get the true damage from your auto from Charge the Stick. So you Conjure Fire, you auto, get the true damage, and then you're hoping that you get a second Conjure Fire. You saw the buff on my hotbar for 1 second. Here, I'll try to get that again. You saw the second Conjure Fire proc. Every time you cast Conjure Fire, there's a chance that you will get this buff right here, called a Fire Charge, and when you auto, you will cast Conjure Fire on the target you auto. And that second Conjure Fire from your auto will give you another Charge the Stick charge. So your ideal DPS rotation will look something like Conjure Fire, auto, get the second proc, auto again. And then you will have a huge burst of damage. For this next piece of advice, it's very important that you have your never attack while moving setting toggled on in the game options. This will make it to where you can cast and auto at the same time. For example, with Conjure Fire, you'll see if I weave it in my auto and my Conjure at the same time, I'll actually do them both with very little end lag. This is also true for heal. You can see I can heal and auto at the same time. This is very important for dodging and kiting and having your good DPS rotations. And will also help you get hit less because you will not be standing still for as long. Because when you auto, you stand still, but when you heal or cast, you also stand still for 1 second. So you will be standing still for the least amount of time you have to while doing the most actions you can at once. Your autos by themselves do not really do that much damage. However, it can be worth doing an auto when you can, just for a little bit of damage. An important thing to understand is that you need to be using your mana effectively. This can be done by not getting hit, because when you get hit, you actually have to heal, which uses mana. Another thing is not to miss your conjure fires, because if you miss a conjure fire, you're just throwing away mana. It's better to be patient and hit your conjure fire, and also to be careful and not get hit. That way you do not have to basically waste a conjure fire by healing yourself. Playing mage before level 20 is kind of like playing Dark Souls. You really need to understand when you can go for damage and when you need to avoid the enemy's attacks. For example, against a Bone Eater, you can usually avoid both of its dashes if you just stay mobile the whole time, and then you can react to see if it does the second dash, and then conjure fire afterwards. Hopefully I can double dash here so I can show you. Right? Double dashes, and then you can avoid both of the attacks. You just have to be patient, wait, and react to what it does. Some mobs are inevitably going to hit you, so understanding where the majority of their damage is coming from and what you're allowed to get hit by is very important. For example, on these enchanters, their tornado does the majority of the damage, whereas their dash doesn't do as much. You can kind of, at my level, which these enchanters are around my level, afford to get hit by the dash, but you can't really afford to get hit by the tornado, so you have to always pay attention. I'll just show you. Tornado does a lot of damage compared to the dash most of the time. And also the tornado is more easily avoidable than the dash. So by knowing what you can afford to get hit by or what is harder to avoid and what you kind of just have to face tank, and knowing what is easier to avoid and where often does a lot of damage at once, you can easily kill mobs even if you can't avoid everything. Against melee mobs in particular, you need to conjure fire where they're going rather than where they are and wait for them to use their dash. So I wait, let him use his dash, and then I conjure fire where I think he's going to walk. See there, I conjure fired where he was and I missed, but if you just wait for the dash, you will hit more often. This is very useful against melee mobs like Please, Sunskins, or any mob with any sort of dash or ability. Once you're at level 24 and your conjure fire becomes bigger, your life will feel much better. Killing the mobs you're killing before will feel much easier. Even though you do not get a direct damage increase, your conjure fire will be much easier to hit, and the second conjure fire you get from fire charge will also be bigger, as you can just see there. This allows you to AoE clear mobs, and also just not miss your attacks, which means that you are basically doing more damage and wasting less mana by missing. Now I know what you've all been wondering, when can I use Fireball? Unfortunately, Fireball is very high mana cost, so it's not really usable till around level 30, I would say, and even then, its base damage compared to Conjure Fire's base damage is not that different. The main difference is the magic scaling. So eventually Fireball will be much stronger, but it takes a while to come online. I would say around level 30 you can start mixing in Fireball with your rotation, but before then it's not really super usable. That being said, once you can use Fireball effectively, it's a nice addition to your DPS rotation. It does have a long cooldown, but it's very good at AoE clearing mobs and also just adding more burst damage because it's a separate cooldown from your Conjure Fire. So you can sort of Conjure Fire and then Fireball, like back to back, and proc your Charge the Stick twice, and also you gave yourself another chance to get a bonus Conjure Fire. So yeah, takes a while to come online, but once it comes online, it is very strong and feels very nice. A Fireball is really difficult to get. It only drops from basically these crazed occultists in the desert area. They're pretty scary if you're a low level, because they do a lot of damage and explode whenever they die, as you'll see here. They also have very long respawn timers compared to other mobs, which can make them very difficult to farm, but if you want to get Fireball, this is pretty much the only way. Next I'm going to talk a little bit about what runes I recommend. So you might be wondering which is better, the base damage or the percent damage rune. And basically all you need to know is that the base damage is better up until around 100 magic, at which point it is equal to the percent damage, and then after 100 magic, which you'll get around level 50, the percent damage is better. The percent damage rune actually drops from the Sunskin Enchanter, which is hard to kill, especially early, and it is a really rare drop. But it's probably easier than the other rune. If you thought the percent damage rune was cancer to farm, then I have bad news, because the omens are very difficult to get to, more or less to kill. It doesn't look so bad in this video, because there's like 20 of us hitting it, but if you're trying to solo farm this, the drops are really rare, omens are really annoying to kill, this place really sucks to get to. But if you can get it, is a very, very big upgrade, so. Lastly, I'm going to talk about the trait tree, specifically what do you do with your trait points after level 24? I've been investing in the orb tree. I went one into pondering it, then electric nature, and then magic touch, and then pondering it again, electric nature again, and then I actually went back, put another point in this because the 5% I think is less than, I think it went from 3 to 6% spell vamp. I think that's bigger. The early orb points are really good value and are worth putting points into. Eventually, I plan to go into the light armor tree around level 48 and go into Close of the Damned. I think this is pretty strong, especially later. You can get a lot more magic from every light armor piece, plus you can remove negative effects, which is good for things like the burlap pieces. I think at level 56 you could also go into battle boots. That would be interesting. And then maybe around like level 64 you could get bumbling genius and get like a really interesting like move speed build going where you get magic for the move speed as well. I think that could be a really interesting late game build. So yeah, that's all my thoughts and advice regarding this build. Hopefully it was helpful. Hopefully you have fun running it. If you have any other questions, I'm always live at twitch.tv/ode to whirl. Feel free to come hang out. Also consider subscribing if you like my content and want to see more of it. I plan to continue making mage guides in the future, so yeah. Thank you all for watching. Really means a lot. Good luck on the grind.